Okay, it's probably going to record all this stuff too, though. All right, so basically what we have here is is my little city. Okay, and the tool that I'm using right off the bat is behind the orbit tool. It is called the pan tool. And the reason I like this tool is because oftentimes your scene gets somewhere out of whack, and if this pan tool moves the whole scene at once. Not to be confused with the orbit tool, which is when you push in your scroll and you can orbit around. Notice that I have the town hall that we talked about, and I have a little restaurant that I started creating. It has some fancy little stairs on there, and you may even notice that on the side it has a ramp. Okay, one of the last things I ask you to do is make your city wheelchair accessible, which I think is really fun. But basically, kids always ask me how to make that stair. Remember that really all you're doing is making a rectangle and then using the push-pull tool to lift that up a little bit. If you look, you want to make sure your stairs aren't too tall. So that's about a 3-foot stair so far. Let's make it a little higher. That's about 4. So I scroll in and I get right on this object. You want to be right on top of objects that you create when you want to do some fine tuning. I'm going to click this pencil and I just move up this side and it stops me where the midpoint is, which makes it real easy to draw a line across this. And then same thing, I can do it again. It tells me the midpoint of every plane that I'm on. Here's another midpoint. Okay, it does that automatically. Okay, and then once you get your little dividers there, you basically just use the push-pull tool and pull these out. And you have a little staircase there. Kind of cool. If you wanted to make it wheelchair accessible, check this out. I'm going to use my pencil tool. I'm going to draw a pencil here. I'm going to draw this there. I'm going to click my push-pull tool. And I'm just going to pull this out. Boom. Sort of wheelchair accessible. I need a little landing up here of some sort. Maybe I could just do this. There we go. All right, kind of dangerous little drop off there, but if you've ever seen the concourse is the worst. If you roll down the side back over where the buses pull up, try to manage that downhill there with a wheelchair. It's pretty challenging. So I'm going to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about some of these other tools. One of the tools that is important that you will need is this tool that is actually behind the move tool. I think we demonstrated that a little bit yesterday. To make the move tool, maybe I decided I didn't want this thing to be here. I wanted it to be facing a different direction. I can draw a big box over there. Notice that I'm doing an aerial view. Once I do the box, it selects the whole thing as if it's an object, which it is, I guess, but it's several pieces at this point. I'm going to scroll in. And if I wanted to move this, I click on this throwing star looking tool called the move tool, and I can move this down the axis called the red axis, also known as the X. If it's not red and I'm going this way, there's a tendency that it might go underground or it might even go above ground. So make sure you're on the axis, the red axis. Okay, and then maybe I want to move it down the other way. So I'm going to come over here and now I'm going to move it down the green axis. Same thing. As you move it, there should be a little dotted line that's green behind you. You can see that little green line. If I get off, it turns black. That's not good. Okay, and that's how I move objects. Well, what if I wanted to rotate it and move it a different way? Well, if I go over there by the star tool and I click behind the star tool, there is the the rotate tool. If you click the rotate tool, it is sort of like a big protractor. Maybe we wanted this for whatever reason to go up on its end. Well, we could put this protractor, we could zoom in a little bit, and we could put this protractor right here on the side, in which case what's going to happen is I'm going to be able to set the stairs up on the back here. Or maybe we want it to, this, for whatever reason, where the ramp is, we wanted that to be flipped over upside down. Okay, the protractor will let you do that, but I'm going to do something kind of simple, which is just rotate it. Maybe we just wanted it to face the other direction. Probably not going to do this so much with the building as much as when we download an object and you have, for example, a car, and the car's facing this way and your street's facing that way, and you're like, I need to spin it. So you take this protractor and you put it up right next to your object. The further out you put the protractor, the bigger radius it's going to spin on. I think that's the right math term. But get it up here nice and tight so it'll turn on a dime, and you click once to set it. That puts it to where it won't move anymore. And now it's basically just a rotation tool. And notice that a way I can rotate this to any direction I want. Helpful if it was something like a fire truck you're trying to put inside a building you made and it's not facing the right way. That's what this protractor helps. Okay, so that tells you a little bit about that. A little bit about walls and fences. One of the things we're going to do today, if you're ready to go, is we are going to create a road. Okay, so I'm going to click back on the pan tool, and I'm going to move this whole scene right into the center where it's at, and and I'm going to use my rectangle tool, and I'm going to make a street. Okay, now I'm going to leave myself some room for walkways and some room for buildings. So I'm going to put this about right here. I'm just going to draw a big old rectangle right in the center. When that little diagonal is there, it's telling you it's square. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangle. I'm going to take my measurement tool, and I'm going to measure 10 feet. No, not 10. Let's say a road, you have one car going one way and one car going the other way. You're probably looking at a car that's about 6 feet wide. Times 2, that's 12 feet. That means a road should probably be like 14 feet. So I'm just going to measure this in until I'm about that. That's about 15. Notice that it puts this dotted line showing you where 15 feet is. So now all I got to do is go get my rectangle and go up there to about where I want that road to start. And here I can just draw another rectangle. And yes, I'm kind of eyeballing this a little bit, but notice that it's still square. And I have a little center there. And then you may want to paint that road. I'm going to click on the paint bucket as I talked about earlier. If you click on the browse button, it shows you all different kinds of things you can do. Maybe you want a brick street. Maybe you want it to be a glass street. That'd be interesting, or mirrors. I'm just going to do concrete, and let's just click on this one, and we're just going to fill this in. Now, the center section I could delete, but instead I'm going to leave it there, and the reason I'm going to leave it there is I'm going to scroll down here to landscaping, and I'm going to make this center section kind of like New York, kind of like a Central Park, and notice that I have a bunch of grass in this center now. Okay, you can't paint where there's not an object, so that's why when I click on these areas, it won't fill. But I do have my little road there now. Okay, pretty cool. If you wanted to do a walkway, which is another requirement, I'm going to scroll over here. You know, we would want probably some walkways that went down this way and moved around. Walkways are really just rectangles. So if you come down here and you find an area where you want to start your walkway, you really just have to know how wide it should be. I guess a walkway would be about 5 feet. And then I can just build off that. So here, same thing. I'm going to look in the bottom right-hand corner and make sure it's about 5 feet wide. At some point, you might want, instead of straight edges, maybe you want to do an arc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to delete this line where I connected them. And then I'm going to click on the arc tool. This particular one is a 2-point arc, which just means I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go click, click, maybe about, there's those arches I wanted, but you get the idea. I click on the select tool, the area I want gone, and now I have sort of a little arced path rather than, you know, everything being square. Let me show you another example of this. Maybe you wanted a crazy arced path. Let's go down here to the end. Maybe it was leading to a nice little, I don't know, a pond or something. Behind the pencil tool, you have the squiggle tool. Actually, it's not called squiggle. That's what I call it. Freehand. Let's call it freehand. Here, I'm just going to, oops. Don't forget about this undo button, by the way. You're going to come over here to the corner. We're just going to go. And now I got a little piece of sidewalk that's totally customized. Ooh, looks like a guitar. Okay, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the fence tool, which is where, let's say you wanted a fence somewhere along the line, maybe a backyard for one of these buildings. Maybe you want to put a fence out in the middle of this thing. I don't know. But let's say you wanted a fence right here. You just draw it down the axis. You know you're on the axis when it snaps into place and tells you it's on the red axis. Then you take this and go straight up the blue. And then same thing on the other side. Draw a pin, go straight up the blue. And you'll notice when you go it literally snaps across for you. Then you just connect the dots. This is how you make a fence. And if you didn't want a fence, maybe you wanted it a wall, use the push-pull tool. Pull this out just a little bit, and now you have a wall that you can paint. Okay, that's how you kind of create things. Okay, so if we go back to the assignment and we click on the image here, you can see now how we started. You know, we had these little walkways, and we made our little center fence line. And then we made our first building and our second building, and that made this big old hospital. And then you just start piecing things together and put things where you want. Be creative, and just look at the requirements. There is a requirement for a athletic area. There's an area for a pool. There's an area for a optional park-like thing, an arcade, you know, this, that, and the other. So just look at the requirements. An entrance. I got a kind of a main entrance here, which is the last thing I'm going to show you how to make. To make your entrance, all you basically do is come over here to an area where you want to make it. A good rule of thumb is to always be in front of whatever you're trying to create. or trying to edit. So I'm going to get right in front of this fence, and I'm going to use the pencil tool, and I'm just going to draw a line right down the side of this. Notice that I'm on the blue axis. And then you could measure it. An entrance should be what? Maybe, I would say at least 20 feet. So there's the 20-foot mark. I'm going to use my pencil tool again. And where I made that mark, I'm just going to go straight up. Okay, now I'm just going to delete that portion with the select tool. Click right in the center, delete. Okay, and so we have a little entryway. To make it a little bit fancier than just an opening, you can scroll out. I'm going to grab the rectangle tool. Let's begin this about right here, and we're just going to make a little rectangle right here on the ground. Sometimes it does this fill in. Don't panic if it does that. Just click on the gray and hit delete. And then the push-pull tool. Pull this up. I'm going to pull mine up about 20 feet. I'm going to grab my 2-point arc tool because I'm fancy. I'm going to make an arcy area. I'm just going to go click, click, and go straight up. It's about 14 feet. It should be perfect. Even an area where I can use text to put something right here. That'd be kind of cool. Push-pull tool and just pull that through. And check it out. I got a cool entrance. Again, you could use the text tool to put some text right on the front of this. That's right behind the, where is it? The rectangle tool. Just call this whatever. Let's call it Wix Palace. Click OK. And just stick it right on there. If you wanted to resize that because it's not big enough, you can click on the Move tool. And behind it, there's the Scale tool. And this allows us to take this little object here and just go to the corner and make it bigger. And then, of course, just go back to the Move tool and scooch this over on the axes. Okay, pretty cool. You can even paint that if you wanted to fill that in a color or something. All right, so you can kind of see how the city comes together. It's just a matter of putting it all together. Please make sure you get the website finished first and then jump in and work on seeing if you can get your city built.